Hi, and welcome to the Board Game Nexus. I'm your host, Anthony.
And I'm Francis.
And today we're taking you through a list.
A list.
A list of
By
games.
popular demand.
Yes, that we don't normally do, but we thought we'd get into the business of doing lists because we have quite a collection.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have asked for our lists. And
Yeah.
we have a lot of lists to share.
We have a lot of good games we want to share, so this is a good way to do it. So this list is going to be a little different than your standard, like, top 10 games of all time. Those are kind of for another time.
Right.
We thought it would be a good idea to kind of come up with our top mechanics and then decide together on games that are in our collection that we thought really exemplified those mechanics well.
Right. Now, as you know, there are a plethora of mechanics in the hobby. And there's not just one mechanic per game, right? Because games use multitudes of mechanics. But we chose 10 core mechanics that we enjoy the most out of all of the probably 10s and 20s and 30s and 50s of mechanics out there that we thought really stood out above all the rest for us personally.
Right.
And then we went and collectively chose a game that we thought best represented or displayed that mechanic for the most part, and chose that the best one of the bunch, right? So we call this the best of the best.
Yes.
These are the best of the best by mechanic, and we hope you enjoy the list. You're probably not going to agree with most of it.
Yeah.
Because everybody has a different opinion on games. We are not chasers of the hottest game out. We're not backers of every Kickstarter game that's known to man.
No, we like to kind of look into our collection and actually say, like, okay, this is a game from maybe 2017, 2015, but is really, really good, and everybody's kind of forgotten about it, even though it was hot.
Right, games stand the test of time. Good games, we'll put it that way. Good games stand the test of time. And not every list, needs to, unless it's a specific 2020 list or 2022 list. We're going to have games from our collection. We're going to dig deep, and some of these are older, some of these are newer, but they still stay at the top for these mechanics. So without going on and on and on, we're going to start. So just to give you a rundown quick before we get into it, here these are the mechanics we're covering, and we'll go in this order. We're going to cover tile placement, worker placement, deck builder, area control, Tableau Builder, Pick 'em and Deliver, Civilization Builder, Dungeon Crawler, Economic, and Social Deduction.
Yes.
Right. So these are our 10 top mechanics that we enjoy, and we're about to go through the top 10 games. So let's start with the first one, tile placement.
All right.
All right. So tile placement.
Yes.
Interesting mechanic, right? So tile placement, for those of you who don't know what tile placement is, it's really just games where the main mechanic consists of typically drafting and placing shaped tiles, really like Tetris-shaped tiles.
Yes.
So you're looking at like T shapes and L shapes and
lines,
little Z shapes,
squares,
and lines and squares, all sorts of shapes, right? Drafting those tiles, placing them on a grid, according to some placement rules, where you'll be covering up symbols, gaining bonuses and benefits, and all that stuff, right? So there are a lot of different tile placement games out there. We've played a lot of different tile placement games over the years, but one of them, for both of us, stands head and shoulders above the rest.
Yes, it does.
Wouldn't you say?
It does, and I think we should just bring it out and then we'll talk about it.
Okay, let's bring it out.
Enough chitter chatter.
Build up?
Yes.
But the build up is the best part.
I know it is. I know you love it. So this is New York Zoo. This is by the king of tile placement himself, I think, right?
Well, well, I guess you could say that. Arguably.
Arguably.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Uwe Rosenberg has had quite a few tile placement games, smaller tile placement games over the last couple of years. And has kind of gotten into a groove of sort of, like you said, just these basic like place tiles on a grid. They all kind of have the same idea associated with how you're getting points and stuff. It's sort of a theme kind of overlaid over the top very nicely. This was the first one for us, I think, that really the theme felt really tied in. And you're doing more than like just placing tiles. It's kind of like, in this game, you're creating a zoo, so you're creating enclosures and things with your tiles that you're placing.
Yes.
And you're actually like
breeding
animals, and you're drafting animals at the same time as you're drafting tiles.
Yeah, so it's a combination of both. And I think the thing is, like, I guess the original tile placement game was Patchwork that we played. Now, it was a 2-player game. And we really, really liked that one because I think theme-wise it was really tied in. You were creating a patchwork quilt. Basically. You tied buttons onto it and all sorts of stuff. And it really just, you were drafting around in the same format. Like, he's got this, like, circular drafting layout that he uses, and it just works. But a lot of the games that came after Patchwork, we just didn't really click with us. I think they became very samey, very long games, like longer than they should be, I guess. And New York Zoo sort of like kind of rekindled our love for the tile placement games, I think, and that's why.
I think because it has a little more meat to it.
It has more meat,
and so it's kind of like the tile placement is front and center, which is why we picked it for our tile placement game. But there is like a lot more going on thematically and strategically, I think. And I think that's what he was probably trying to do in those other games, but it ended up just being a really long tile placement game.
Yeah, like really long. And it was more about like what you were covering versus this one's more about like
what you're building.
What you're building and kind of working the animals and drafting animals as well. So it kind of mixes it up enough to where there's a lot more variety to it, and why we chose this one as our top tile placement. Now, granted, we only talked about Uwe Rosenberg tile placement games, but we've played others, granted, but we've played mostly Uwe Rosenberg.
Yeah, I would say honest. For the most part. I think another one that I was thinking for tile placement would be like Paris.
Paris is a good one
which we just played recently, but that'll probably show up on another list sometime.
Yeah, so there's a lot looked at. Like I said, you're probably gonna be shouting at the screen now. Oh, what about this one? That one's so much better. And maybe it is for you, but for us, New York Zoo.
New York Zoo is it? Yeah.
Yeah. So look, what we would love to hear is what your favorite tile placement
is.
So
for sure.
While you're watching this video, definitely go down in the comments, plug in, say, you know what, I agree or I disagree. This was what I think, because we may have played it and just it didn't really resonate for us, or we may not have played it yet and it'll open our eyes up to some other options. So there you go.
All right,
New York Zoo. Next mechanic we're going to go through is worker placement.
All right. Tough category.
Yeah, so worker placement, I always think of as sort of like the cornerstone of Euro type games.
For sure.
Right? Yeah. It's like the building blocks. Like every good Euro has worker placement.
Right. Assign a person, go get your stuff.
To a task in a location and get stuff. Right? Or do stuff.
Yeah.
Right? It allows you, it's like action selection, but with a physical meeple at a physical location. That's all it is. So there's a lot of ways to do that. But, so this is clearly a tough category.
Yeah,
because there
we're
is
heavy Euro gamers.
So much. Yeah, for a couple that plays so many Euro style games, worker placement is, I guess, predominantly found in our collection. Like it is probably the largest population of our collection.
Yeah. So again, what we're trying to do with this list is decide what game really epitomizes this mechanic
for us.
So. So the one that we picked really is central. Worker placement is kind of
like... It's a good part of it.
It's a good part. It's not the whole game, but it's definitely could not be played without it. This piece.
It's a big component of this game, although it is not the only mechanic in this game.
Right, exactly.
Because you'll probably be screaming, well, actually, no, it's this game too. But for us, the worker placement was such a core element that this is the game we chose to represent this category for us.
Yes.
So the game we chose is Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Yes, surprise.
Surprise. So there is work. So you've got your explorers. You're placing them out in locations to generate resources. You're placing them out in all of these different ruins to generate and gather more resources, to do other things. Now, granted, there is a sort of a deck building component to it because you're drafting cards, you're playing cards out every turn. But really what stood out, at least for me, is the worker placement strategy in this game.
Yeah, agreed. And I think what sold it for me, because we were kind of going back and forth about a couple of different games for this title, and what I did like about this also is that the cards that you're putting out are additional like worker placement locations too. Right?
Yeah. Well, I think they are.
Well, yeah. I mean, because you're discovering the sites.
Well, yeah,
right?
yeah. The sites themselves are not the cards themselves.
Not the cards.
The cards are actions. Yeah. And they allow you to do certain things, but the actual sites themselves, the ruins, they're tiles. They're kind of like cards, but they're tiles. Yeah.
but you're actually using those to go out and get your resources and do your excavating and all of that.
Yeah, the whole half the game is you're discovering and creating new worker placement locations.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Where you're getting at, yes.
Right.
I kind of saw where you were going.
Okay. You saw where I was going.
Yes.
Help me get there.
Yes. So that's why it's such a core element to this game. And we really, if you were to tell me to pick a worker placement game that you'd want to play, this would be the one I'd say, let's do it.
Yeah, and I think that, the other thing we were thinking about this list is accessibility as well. So there were a few games we were thinking about, like if you know me, one of my favorite games of all time is Anachrony. Love that game, tons of cool worker placement, but it's just not accessible for lots of different types of gamers. So this one for us, playing about like 30 minutes per player, it's easy to understand what's going on, highly thematic,
easy to teach,
rich experience, easy to teach, and every time we've pulled it out to play it, regardless of who we're playing with, we always have a really great time.
Yeah, we've played 4 players with this, and it's a smooth, fast game. I mean, it's faster than it would have taken us to play any other heavier worker placement game, and it feels strategic enough and thinky enough that you don't feel like you need something heavier. You're not left wanting at the end of this game.
Yeah, and it's also not going to take up your entire game night.
Exactly.
Which is also important for us.
Which is how we weigh these things. Like there are games that we would obviously rather play in a more crunchy, brain burnery way. But when it comes to how many times is this going to hit our table?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when we're in a bigger setting with family over and friends over who want to play a game. This is what comes out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that really states, it's a bigger statement.
That's what we had to think about when we were making the list. We're like, okay, what actually comes out in these?
What's going to come out? Yeah, like what, because you've got your pride of place games that...
We actually literally do have pride of place games.
Yeah, we have pride of place games on our shelf. So you got pride of place games that you're like, this is the pinnacle. This is the game that we always like, we love this game, but it doesn't get the table time because it's not as accessible.
Exactly.
So for us, for a worker placement game that's meaty, chunky, but not too overbearing and overwhelming, Lost Ruins of Arnak. That's our pick.
Cool.
So next category is deck builder.
Yes.
Okay, so third mechanic, deck builder.
Deck builders. We don't play a lot of deck builders.
We don't.
But I do like the mechanic.
I do, and I think it's a mechanic. And here's the thing. Now, so you're probably going through your head right now and thinking about a bunch of different deck builder games, but you're probably thinking about a bunch of games that have deck builder components, right? I'll give you an example. Clank in Space, that whole series is at its core a deck builder, but it's also a pressure luck racing game where you're running around the board and doing other stuff. So the deck building is part of the game.
It's adjacent in a way.
Right. So what we did was we chose a game that was mainly about the cards, where there is a board, but it's really to where you place your cards.
Right.
Right. So you can put a game mat down. It's an organizing board that you don't necessarily need to have, but they're nice to have.
Yes.
Right. But we wanted to do a game that was actually like at its core a deck builder.
Yes.
Like we said, we don't really love them, but we do enjoy them, and they're in our top 10.
Right.
Because there's a lot of other categories I don't.
Well, and the thing is, I think it's more for me the themes that come up in a lot of deck builders, because you're doing a lot of fighting and all that stuff. But the game that we picked, thematically, you're like really engaged the whole time.
Yes, and I'll bring that up so we can talk about the game. And it shouldn't be a surprise to some of you, because some of you probably love this game, and I know a lot of folks who've played it absolutely adore it.
As do we.
As do we. Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. Now, I was very skeptical when this game initially came out, because I don't trust any game that, number one, is off of a movie IP, and number two, uses stock film footage.
This is Anthony's pet peeve.
Yeah.
It's a high number one pet peeve.
Absolutely. This is like, I cannot get past it. The only game I've forgiven is Firefly. Would have loved for that to have independent art, but because they just use shots from the show, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I guess you could say I've forgiven Harry Potter as well. There are other games out there that I just cannot play because they have that art.
I know.
The images, and I can't do it. So in any case, Hogwarts Battle does have that, but it is such a rich in theme, well executed movie to board game. The whole thing is just perfect. Like the product itself is so well done. so high quality, so just ties in the theme that you feel like you're in Harry Potter playing this game.
Well, and the cool thing about it, too, is that it is cooperative.
Yeah.
So unlike a lot of deck builders where you might be, like, battling against each other or something like that, this is one where you're, like, it's like you're at Hogwarts together. You're training up to become wizards together, and you're drafting, like, spells, and you're upping your skills, and you're
playing
through the game, or the movie, rather,
All of the movies.
Yeah.
And it progressives and gets bigger and bigger as you go on, so as you unlock more and more components, and it creates a more and more rich experience as you go further down the line of movies. The kids get older, so you feel like you're going through this whole journey with them, and I think that's really where this game sings, and that it's so well executed.
Yeah, it's very, very cool.
Yes, and I think that's where a lot of deck builders kind of lose me, is where you've got this disconnection from the theme and the components and the game itself. I'll say one deck builder I really do like is Thunderstone Quest, but I always feel a little bit disconnected in the whole, the way that the game is. I'm drafting my hand, and that's the party I have to work with for that dungeon. And it's like, all right, I throw it away, and I'm drafting another hand. So it's like, all right, whatever random hero decides to show up for that day is going to be able to fight, for me. And if I don't happen to draw any heroes that day, then I guess I'm not going to fight anybody. It's like, what? So to me, there's the disconnect there. And I love the game. I would love it even more if it actually, kind of tied that in better. That's
absolutely. But this one did it beautifully.
Yes, this one does it beautifully. So our top game for deck builders is Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle.
Awesome.
Next mechanic is area control.
Ooh, yes.
All right, area control.
Yes. So this game probably isn't going to be what you think it's going to be.
Not at all. I bet you couldn't guess if we gave you 10 guesses what game this was. Because mainly when most folks think of area control, at least I know when I do, the first things that come to mind are war games.
Yes, right? Like maps.
Maps, minis, boxing each other out, taking each other's land, taking each other's troops, and just like battles. You think of Kemet, Cyclades, Lords of Hellas, all those games, right? While we do enjoy some of those, we don't enjoy all of those, right? But
especially at two players,
at two,
it can get really
tough.
tricky.
Yeah, and it's very take thatty when it's at two. So what really stood out for us is a game that, believe it or not, is area control, even though it is not. It is the core scoring mechanism, I would say. Yeah. It's not necessarily the core.
It's like in disguise. It's in disguise.
It's in disguise, right? It's not like the core. It is an action selection game, right? Which is kind of like workers' actions, but they're cards, not actual meeples.
And it is a little deck building.
It is deck building for sure. But the whole premise of what you're doing, the means scoring. To the ends, the end is scoring by placing your presence out on the board.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So with that said, here is the
now
game.
Now that you're completely confused.
Yes, the game we chose, and believe it or not, is called Rococo. Now, Rococo is
such a good game.
Is a dressmaking game set in France.
Yes.
And you are tailors, and you are trying to create wonderful dresses and suits for the nobles for a lavish ball thrown by the king. Yep. And the whole worker placement is actually in cards. It's not even placement. It's just playing cards for actions, and they're your tailors, and they're actually buying materials and sewing these garments, really. Yeah. And the catch here in the whole worker and the area control bit is in when you create these outfits, you're basically selling them to the nobles or renting them to the nobles, and you're giving it to them and placing them on a particular floor in a particular hall in the palace.
Right, exactly.
And you need majority to score the best.
Yeah.
So therein lies your area control.
Yeah, and there's several different, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there might be like 5 sections.
5 sections.
And then you have like your fireworks display at the top, where at the end of the game, you're going to be scoring, extra points for being up at the top of the fireworks display.
Based on majority, best positioning.
All based on majority.
There's a ton of area control in this game, even though it's in disguise, in costume.
Yeah.
And it's so well hidden because the theme is so rich in this game.
Well, and it's funny because I'm even thinking, like, you know how you can put statues, right?
Yeah.
Across. It is not unlike a kind of, minis on a map kind of game where you get additional points for having, like, temples built and things like that. So you're actually, like, getting even more presents by having, the statues out and everything. Contributing to this ball.
And all about having majority in all these different categories, having the most fixtures and statues and all this. So, like, it's area control down to at the core, right? It does have a bunch of mechanics, but for us, the area control really stands out because it's done in such a unique way.
Right.
Rococo is probably one of our favorite games, period. So,
hands down, yeah.
When it comes to area control, I think this is the type of area control we enjoy. That's why this sits comfortably at the top of this list.
Yeah.
There's nothing even remotely close to second place on this one because it is just leaps and bounds ahead of them. We had the original version.
We still have the original version.
We still have the original version. The deluxe version is just hit this one completely out of the park.
Right.
It's in a different stratosphere. It sits on its own shelf. This
is one of our pride of place.
This is a pride of place, as we mentioned earlier.
And again, we talked about accessibility before. This is another one that we can bring out with any group. You feel the strategy, but you're still immersed in the theme, and it's fun, and it's not the only game you're going to play that night. So for all those reasons. Yep. So it's the one.
If you like area control and you don't have Rococo, then there's something wrong there. It needs to be fixed. Right. It needs to be fixed. So maybe skip the next Kickstarter and look for your copy of Rococo.
A copy of this. I think that might be too why so many people do like Rococo. Like a lot of gamers who maybe wouldn't normally be into the theme or didn't think they'd be into the theme because it's kind of like, it's dressmaking, like it's pretty, But I think a lot of people really love it, and that might be secretly why.
Every non-hobby gamer that I've introduced this game to loves it.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Right.
And these are people who are not who you would say, who would consider to be like ingrained in the board gaming hobby community. Yeah. They don't know half of what goes on in this community. Yeah. They just buy games and play them. Like that's literally all they get involved in. When they play this game, they love it. So there you go. Cool. Rococo. Next topic is Tableau Builder.
All right.
All right, so our fifth mechanic is Tableau Builder.
This is one of my favorites. Actually, well, I guess all of these.
They're our favorite. They're our top 10 favorites. So everything on here is going to be a favorite.
I just know tableau building was such a hard one for us to pick. I mean, it was and it wasn't. So.
Yeah, agreed. So Tableau Builder, for those who don't know what Tableau Builder is, it's basically when you are collecting cards or tiles or tokens or whatever, and you're putting them down in front of you in your player area. In your player area, you're building sort of an engine with the cards you place in your player area because they have certain synergies, you're doing certain things, and that becomes like your tableau. Yeah. Right, and that's your scoring mechanism. It's helping you generate additional resources. It's doing all sorts of benefits, right? Yeah. Depending on the synergies. That's really what Tableau is, right? So there's a lot of games that use Tableau building as a part of a greater game.
Yes, exactly.
And, the game we chose, like all the others, really puts Tableau building sort of front and center.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we have like an action selection type of, or I guess you could say worker placement type of element in this game. But yeah, the Tableau building is front and center not only to the scoring, but to how the game plays. Because again, like you said, with a lot of these Tableau builders, deck builders too, you kind of get intimately connected to this particular game session. Because you're building this engine, whether it's a tableau or a deck or whatever, in a way that makes each game experience a little bit different. To the point where, at least when I play, I have to remember, oh wait, I can't score that because that was just part of my engine last time. That wasn't actually part of the rules. Right. You know what I mean? So you have a lot of that, which for me is why it's one of my favorites.
Because every game
is a little different.
It's
custom for you and based on how you built it.
Yep, and the worker placement and resource generation and resource gathering is really the means to the end, and the end is the tableau. And that's kind of that's the sort of the philosophy we use when determining like the core mechanic of a game. It's like there's a means to an end. It's not the means that's the core mechanic. It's the ends. What are you getting to? Yeah. Like what is all this stuff helping you achieve? Yes. And if the end is building your deck, to have a powerful deck, then that equals deck builder. Like that's just how we sort of wrap our head around this. You know, you may think differently, but that's how we do it. So the game we chose for Tableau Builder is Everdell. This should not be a surprise to many of you because this is definitely a highly revered game. It is probably, in my opinion, arguably one of the best Tableau builders.
Yeah, it really is.
Out there.
For many reasons,
yes.
I guess, right?
Yeah, for a lot of reasons. Like it's got like the synergies between the animals and the locations is a mini game within itself. Just being able to find those matches, and if you can't, just actually paying full price for the stuff, and then hopefully finding the match. Like there's just such a rich experience in living in this world while you're playing this game.
Right.
Because the theme, the art, all of it it's so charming, for lack of a better word, that it just draws you in.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I think mechanically, it's extremely graceful, the design, and it exemplifies what tableau building should be really well. But then it's just it's built into this theme that, like you said, it's like a place you want to live.
Yeah.
Like you live there for 90 minutes or whatever.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And it's a nice place to live.
It is cool, right? Yeah. And what's neat about this one in particular, too, that I really enjoy, it has nothing to do with it being a tableau builder, is that you kind of, there are no real rounds. So it's sort of, but it's also not paced based on one person finishing the game, like reaching some kind of, end point and saying, okay, the game's over for everyone now. You get to keep playing until you have all your workers out and you achieve your own. Yeah, exactly.
You've got to go through the seasons.
Yeah. So there might be times, you finish your game and I'm still finishing my game before the game is actually over.
Yeah, when you kind of when you're done. When you're done, you're done. Like,
now,
you can only do so much.
In our experience, everybody kind of finishes around the same time, but at least then you get that satisfaction of kind of finishing this masterpiece that you've made, which is your tableau.
At least you hope it's a masterpiece at that point, because it doesn't always turn out that way. But so Everdell hits the nail on the head. It's firing on all cylinders. This is a really great tableau builder, and it is our top pick.
Yeah, tons of expansions and stuff too. So
which we don't even really delve into too much, because the base game alone is enough. Is fulfilling enough for us.
But I think that on a list like this too. We're not just, some of you are hobbyists, some of you are just kind of coming to us for the first time and might be more casual gamers, and you're looking for something that you can play and replay and replay and replay, and that's just like your game. Yeah. And this is one of those games, in my opinion. So
we are in the boat of buy a game to play it multiple times.
Yeah.
Right? And we're not so much in the camp of I need to get the next best game out there. Right? Because it's like, if you could sit and say, I'm not playing enough of my games that are on my shelf, but you're still buying games, then there's got to get to a point where you got to start playing the games.
It's like a whole separate discussion, I guess, but there's nothing wrong with that. I think that you can collect.
There's a collector, and then
you can definitely collect.
There's a gamer.
But for the majority of folks that we encounter and we play with, it's like, let me keep a nice curated collection, and we're gonna play the same game. Every weekend.
Exactly. Like we have...
Until we're kind of done with it,
We have hundreds of games.
Yeah.
Hundreds. Yeah. And to continue to grow that, to me, is absurd, because we don't get to all of them.
Yeah.
But we definitely get to the top 10, and we want to make sure that we share that with you all, so you understand. So
Everdell, this one gets a lot of play time.
Tableau Builder. Next category is Pick Up and Deliver. You love this. It's my favorite. They're all your favorite. So, Pick Up and Deliver. Pick Up and Deliver. One of your favorites. Yet another one of your favorites.
Yet another one of my very favorites.
Yeah, Pick Up and Deliver is exactly what it sounds like, though.
Yeah. Well, the reason I like it...
pick things up and put things down.
You do. Exactly. I like any kind of game that's like a contract filling type of thing, or has like a contract filling mechanic. I like, because it's like, all right, cool. Like, this is my thing I have to go do. Let me go do it. And then I did it, and now I feel like I did something. And I'm just going to keep doing that over and over and over. It's like just checking tasks off that list. That is my thing. I just if
you're someone who likes to do that, then Pick Up and Deliver is your thing.
So Pick Up and Delivery takes it a step further, because not only are you fulfilling a contract, but you're actually usually traversing some kind of the board, or, I was going to say Space, perhaps.
Well, and on that note, our favorite pick up and deliver game just so happens to be in space.
It is.
And it is called Star Wars Outer Rim.
So freaking good.
Yeah, so you don't even have to be a Star Wars fan to really enjoy this. And if you are a Star Wars fan, this is even better because it really takes the whole pick up and delivery mechanic and just creates all this wonderful narrative around it.
Exactly.
And that's really what it does.
Yeah.
So whether you feel like you want, because you're all mercenaries, and whether you want to become a bounty hunter or you want to just be a smuggler or a do-gooder, you can do all that. The universe is yours, and you just spend time on the Outer Rim in the Star Wars world, upgrading your ship, picking up goods, delivering goods, doing contracts, taking bounties, hiring crew, taking tests, going through different planetary things. Like there's all sorts of cool stuff going on in this game.
Yeah, and you can do different things, right? Like you could go into this being like the bounty hunter, which is like what I do a lot.
You could technically be Boba Fett.
Yes, you can, and or you can go into it and like you're gonna pick up all the like illegal stuff.
Yeah, do all the smuggling.
Like do all the smuggling, and it's just the fact that you can do so many different kinds of contracts. And build your ship like kind of in a way that helps with the kind of game you want to play is just really, really cool. Yeah,
and it doesn't use stock photos from the movies, which is great. It uses art, which is all perfectly beautiful. They hit it out of the park with this one, and honestly, Fantasy Flight really killed it on this game. And the only one drawback we thought was that it might get a little samey once you've played through everything. Yeah. And you could play through everything if you played it enough. That was my one concern. They just the expansion, not even announced, but the expansion should be out any day now, which solves all of that, in my opinion. It means that they're supporting the game, they're continuing to expand the game, adding more content to the game. It's a no-brainer to own this game at this point. If you like pick up and delivery, if you like Star Wars, this took the crown from my previous favorite pick-up and delivery game, which is also in space, which happens to be called Firefly. That was a much meatier game, a much longer playtime, much more challenging. I think it was harder, punishing. Yeah. But still great game nonetheless. This one streamlines it in such a way that it's much easier to get to the table and play, in my opinion. That's
absolutely. I think so too.
Yep. So
love it.
This one's top notch. This will sit on that seat for a long time, I think, unless somebody else comes and knocks it out of the park as well. But this one's definitely our top pick 'em and deliver game. All right, next category is Civilization Builder. Ooh. Okay, so we are on number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 10. Civilization Builder. Now, Civ Builders. This is a really tough category.
Well, I don't think it was tough to pick which one we liked.
No, it's not tough to pick which one.
It's a tough category.
It's a tough category
for the industry, I think.
It really is, because I think there are a lot of games out there who claim to be Civilization Builders, and they use that term very loosely, I think. Because you could say that, okay, well, you're taking the Mayan Empire and you're building it up through infrastructure, and then that's the end of it. And it doesn't really traverse multiple eras. Yeah. And is that technically a civilization builder? I guess you could say it is.
Or civilizations.
For a civilization or multiple civilizations. Or you have
games that are like, I'm a civ builder, and it's like, you've got all eras all mixed up into like one deck.
Yeah, there's no linearity.
Yeah, there's no it's not linear at all.
It doesn't follow the timeline. Like the technologies don't really line up proper. You don't feel like when I think of a civ builder, I think of civilization as in take me from early era technology through to current day. Yeah. I want to feel like I'm building a civilization up. Right. So that when I'm finished with that game, I'm like, yeah, this civilization is now a powerhouse. It's successful. I've made a lot of money. I'm stable. I've got a strong military presence. All of these things I want to have. And there's not, in my experience, I've not found enough games that claim to be civilization builders that fulfill that. Right. There are some, but not many.
Right. But we've picked one.
We've picked one that we feel, does it the best. Yeah. Hands down.
Right.
for us. You may disagree.
Yeah.
But this is a no-brainer, to be honest, for us.
And it's called Nations.
It's called Nations. This is a game that you go through 4 different eras. It's got 4 different decks of cards, each of them, spanning a certain time period in history. It goes through from the early ages through current times, and you see the historical figures, you see the events, you see the way resources are generated, productivity, all that stuff progresses
you make progression
as technology gets better throughout the years, right? And I'm purposely not saying through the ages because there's other games by those names. So the one thing that really sets this apart, other than the fact that it does properly traverse you through those eras, is that it handles the military component of the game in a way that we are much better with than fighting each other outright. Because there's another really good one that is very take-that-y when it comes to military combat. And it's about like basically kicking down somebody's castle and taking their money. You know what I mean? Like, and to me, that just I don't want to have that experience when I play with people.
Yeah.
Because I just feel that it's just very vindictive, and you can keep doing it in that game.
This is more just like who built a better.
Who built a better? Well, and this is about building the nation. Yeah, it's about building up the nation. Now, there's a military track, and there's war that occurs every round, and as long as you have a military power above that rating, you're fine. You're not affected by it because the war doesn't come into your nation.
Right.
You're stronger than that. So you do have to pay attention to your military strength. But it's not about me fighting the other player.
Yeah, it's not about combat, like direct combat.
Direct combat. And I appreciate that so much. And I think they've done it so well in this game. I think the game is due for a reprint, I'll be honest with you. I think if this thing had a full graphic redesign, full reprint, upped the quality, like if this were like an Eagle Griffin Games production, like that, this would be hands down the single best. It already is the single best, in my opinion.
Right. But I mean, but we're looking at this thing was published in what, 2014? I think?
Guess it's older. I'm sure this is even a reprint. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's definitely an older game.
Right.
And you could tell the component quality is just not there. But it's still, even with that,
good enough. Yeah.
It's still, in my opinion, the best Civilization game out there. So if you're looking for that experience, highly recommend this. If you want a lighter version of this, there is Nations the Dice game that came out. Gives you a taste of this, but it doesn't really give. It doesn't give you that full pack that this one really does, and it delivers for sure.
Cool.
All right, so that is Civilization Builders. Next thing is Dungeon Crawlers.
All right. Dungeon crawling.
Dungeon crawling. Now, we play our share of dungeon crawlers. We don't play a ton of them.
We get in the mood.
To be fair, but we do get in the mood where we want to do a little bit of adventuring. So we do appreciate a good dungeon crawler. We've played a handful of them out there. There's a bazillion of them, to be honest. So we're very picky about the ones we do invest our time in. So this category, though, out of the games in our collection and out of the ones we've really spent some time with, we came up with a pretty solid choice, right?
Oh yeah, this was like, it wasn't even, I don't even think, we like both came up with the same thing at the same time, so it wasn't even a discussion.
Not even a discussion point. So our favorite dungeon crawler, our best of the best, in our opinion, in our collection, is right behind us. It's been behind us for a long time in the studio. Just because it doesn't fit on any other shelf. Is this massive box for Descent, Legends of the Dark 3rd edition, right?
Yes.
It's 3rd edition Descent. So we used to own Descent 2nd edition. Yeah. Journeys in the Dark, I think that
Painted
was
the
called.
whole thing.
Painted the whole thing and then sold it.
Yeah.
As soon as this one came out, we bought this, played this, and I said, I will never play 2nd edition again.
Yeah.
And we sold it. Yeah. And I haven't regretted it 1 ounce because to me, like, this is again, there was a lot of like a lot of disagreement when this came out because it's a heavily app-driven game, and you need the app to play this game. You cannot play it without the app.
Right.
And that bothered a lot of people. For me, what bothers me is that there are games that are probably just as heavily reliant on the app.
Yeah.
That don't feel like I'm playing a board game.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Which I I argue that maybe people that had that feeling about this game hadn't actually played this game or experienced it with the app, perhaps. Because I can see the frustration. I know that, when we were kind of coming up with this dungeon crawler category, we were like, should it really be like dungeon crawler app-based? Because a lot of dungeon crawlers now are app-based.
Yeah.
And in a lot of those, you're right. Like, the app is necessary because it's kind of taking you through a story, but it's like, could this have just been a book?
It could have been, yeah.
Or
like, just read it out
did
of the
we
book.
really need this?
Do you need the app?
Is it really doing anything, or is it enhancing anything? I'm making a lot of decisions right here on the app, but is it really driving the game? Do I even need the game? Like the tangible pieces of the game. And I said this when we reviewed Descent Legends of the Dark, that the app for me actually made the dungeon crawling experience a lot more accessible, because I am not the best at like line of sight and range and like figuring out which weapons to pick, because all of those calculations and stuff are just they're foreign to me. It's not my typical speed for a game. So for me, the app for this game takes care of all that for you.
It does.
Like, you actually click it, and it'll tell you like, here's where I'm at. Here's where the monster is. Like, do I have line of sight to this, whether it's the monster or like a chest that you want to go get or whatever it is.
It'll tell you.
It shows you exactly how many spaces away you are. You can pick your weapon. It shows you the range of the weapon. So again, for me, I could spend more time immersed in the theme of the game, which is completely rich, than I was worried about, all these little technical things that were really taking me out of the experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it removes all the fiddly stuff, because it does all the bookkeeping, and you just have to play the game. You just get to play, right? Without doing all like the app is dungeon mastering for you.
Yeah.
And all of you, we played 4 players. All 4 of us just got to play and focus on the skirmish and the battle, and then looting and going in and like searching and discovering things and getting parts so we could upgrade our weapons, and the app tracks those upgrades. It just does it all for you. The miniatures are larger and better quality than all the other previous miniatures, so it looks phenomenal. The terrain's 3-dimensional.
I'm sorry, I keep thinking like these other games we're playing too that are like app driven, and I won't like name names right now, but it's like, and the miniatures are like this big. Yeah, you know what I mean? And you're like playing this like little shoebox.
Like, do we even need those little miniatures on?
But this is like, this thing is taking up the table. You're like moving stuff. You have like 3D, multiple levels of like terrain basically.
Yeah, you're fighting a boss, and it's just epic. Everything about it is epic.
Remember, we played this at Thirsty Dice.
Yeah, in Philly.
And we did kind of a special on that. And and there were other folks that were in the restaurant, the cafe, not playing board games. They were just there like with their family and stuff, coming over to figure out what we were doing and getting engaged in our dice rolls and everything. They didn't play board games. But they like were cheering us on. Yeah,
because just the presence of this game alone was enough to be like, wow, that game looks ridiculous. So
it's really cool.
So phenomenal game. This is our favorite dungeon crawler as it stands right now. Hands down. It's our favorite. Like, and we played some of the other top dungeon crawlers on the market, and I enjoy this one a lot better.
Yep.
I don't know what it is. I like a bunch of minis on the board when I'm playing a dungeon crawler. Cardboard stand-ups don't do it for me. They just don't.
Yeah.
So
I know.
there you go.
What's next?
So now next is economic games.
Very nice.
So let's jump to that. All right, this is an interesting category. Yeah.
This is another one. It's tough with 2.
Very tough
to do economic games, and we like them.
Yeah, the thing
it's just
about,
hard.
So when you think about economic games, the way we classify an economic game is really you're building a business or an industry or an industrial empire, and you're manipulating. One of our key indicators is manipulating a stock price.
Yes.
On a company, right? Whatever you guys want to call it, we call it economic, right? Because you're basically trying to increase the value of your company because you own stock shares or other people own stock shares, and there's a lot of that going on. So there's a lot of games that do this. A lot of them we don't enjoy.
Right.
But there are a few that we really do enjoy. Some of which we've covered on our channel. But the one that really stands out, and if we ever are in a game where we're wanting to play a game where there is stock and company infrastructure building,
right,
there's one that stands out the most for us.
Yes.
And that is called Tesla versus Edison, War of Currents.
Yes. With the expansion.
Yes. So now the caveat here is that it has to have, from our perspective, it has to have the powering up expansion.
Yeah.
When we first played this game, we loved the building of the electric companies, building the electric infrastructure, AC versus DC, investing in your infrastructure, expanding your power stations and the power grid, the whole 9 yards. Like, it was very exciting. However, it was heavily weighted towards playing the stock market.
Yeah, like you could just completely throw the game just playing the stocks.
Yeah.
And
you could win just by the stock, by having the right stocks, by buying the right stocks.
So it was another one of those ones where, like, you could have one person really playing to the theme and trying to, like, you know, build up your company and all this stuff, and then somebody else that's just like obliterating the stock market.
I'm not really worried about my infrastructure. I'm just gonna buy stock.
Right. Now the powering up expansion adds a lot to this game that I think really actually like highlights the economic components and the mechanic and really makes it shine, because you're just as concerned with managing that piece as you are with actually building your business.
And it's got some rich events and theme that comes out. It ties it all together.
You have a headquarters, which is new. So you're actually looking at like upgrading there's a little bit of like, I wouldn't call it Tableau building, but you're looking at upgrading your like employees and stuff, which is a little bit...
It's more business management.
It is.
It built out on all the parts that were so good about the original, while fixing the sort of, I would call it like an exploit, really, just in the whole stock part of it.
Well, the events affect the stock market
they do as well, which they should.
In this as well. So it's like, it really does balance it a lot more, I think.
Yeah, and it just, once we played with the expansion, it really elevated this game right to the top of the list for us, and it's definitely one of our favorite, or the favorite, in our economic game category. Yeah,
at least especially for 2. Now I think that there are a few that we do enjoy playing, but you need more people to play.
More people.
So that was kind of a again, that was for us. We need to be able to play with the 2 of us. So
there's some good ones out there, but for right now, for the 2 of us, this one stands at the top of the list.
Yeah.
All right, Tesla versus Edison. Final category: social deduction. All right, social deduction.
Yes, such a fun one.
This is an interesting category. Like, they're all very weird. Like, you come up with some of these bizarre ones, and social deduction is, it's not something that we obviously play by ourselves a lot.
Yeah, and I don't even know if I would call this necessarily social deduction.
Or just deduction.
As much as like deduction in general, because social deduction is going to be more like somebody is a traitor, we have to find out who it is, kind of thing. This is
not
there.
That,
there's a lot more. There's a lot of deduction games that we enjoy that are more find the thing or figure out the clues.
Yeah, figure out the word, figure out the clues, deduction.
Yes.
And this is more along the lines of that.
Yeah.
But it's not. I wouldn't call this your simple party game where it's simply here's 2 words, find the joining word that matches, and stuff like that. Or 2 of you are the werewolves and everybody else is a villager.
Yeah.
Let's try to out them out. Like, those are, we don't really play those games. It's just not for us. Not that they're bad. We just don't enjoy them. Yeah. We're just not in a setting like that all the time.
Exactly. We don't have the group for it.
Yeah, if we had the group for it, it'd probably be fun. We just don't ever have the group for it.
Right.
So
we do have the group for this.
We do have the group for this. And every time we have a game night with one of our larger groups, we always bring this because everybody wants to play it. Because it's such a good time, as long as it's played well.
Yeah.
By people who know how to play it. At least one person needs to know how to play it.
Yeah.
And that game is called Mysterium.
Ooh.
Yes.
So cool.
Yeah, the key here is being that everybody else, everybody who plays this game, aside from one person, is a psychic
investigator.
Paranormal investigator. And one player, who's more like the game host, is the ghost.
Right. The game host.
The ghost. That's true. If you combine those words. And that person's responsibility is to basically get everyone to figure out who the murderer is, the murder location, and the weapon.
Right. So if it's not clear, the ghost has died.
Yes.
The ghost has been murdered before they were a ghost.
Yes.
And so they're trying to talk to these paranormal investigators, but the only way that they can communicate with them is through these very abstract cards that have pictures and colors and sort of like wild, dreamy sequences on them. And so you really have to get into the head of the person who you are dealing the cards to, because you as the ghost also want them to figure out who killed you and with what and where. But they all have a limited time to do this.
Yep. And you're giving each of them different cards.
Right.
So it's not like you're giving the whole group one set of cards.
Although a lot of times the group will kind of work together to sort of help, which is a lot of times not helpful.
Yeah.
Because almost like too much information is not a good thing.
Because people make assumptions on your behalf, and it's not right.
Yeah.
So it's very tricky and very challenging.
And very painful as the ghost.
But so rewarding
It's so good,
when
though,
people get your clues. And it is definitely one of those games that everybody always asks to bring out when we're in a larger group, because it's just that fun.
Yeah.
Hands down, right now, it's our absolute favorite deduction type game in a group.
Yeah. It's just, actually, I remember like playing this like with my mom and stuff. And she's just like, I don't understand why nobody is getting my clues.
Yeah. The trick is, if you have a ghost who doesn't really get it.
And then she has to explain it afterwards.
Yeah. The game can go
like, okay,
off the rails hard, because if that ghost is not given clues that make any sense.
Right. But that's why
everybody's just like, I'm not.
That's why it's such a good party game, though.
Yeah.
Like, you really kind of have to know the people you're playing with and know how they think, in a way, to get the clue. In a lot of ways, like, like Codenames is the same way.
Exactly.
Where it helps if you know the people.
It helps if you know the people.
Yeah.
But it's a tough one, but it's so fun.
It is a lot of fun.
That is Mysterium.
Yes.
All right, so let's wrap this up.
Yeah. That wraps it up.
There you have it.
The best of
the best. Of the best. So
those
those are our top 10 by mechanic games in our collection. They are the pride of place. If we have 10 spots, along the walls that were like
with like mechanic tiles
framed in with mechanic tiles underneath them, these are the 10 games that would be sitting up in that location right now.
We should do that.
We should honestly.
We have like room for frames.
We
up
do
there.
have the room for it. We should figure that out.
Okay.
And then kind of publish that so people can see. But this is sort of our first venture into really bringing together some thoughtful lists to kind of share our collection with all of you. Hopefully this is the first of many.
It will be, because these are very painful for me to make. Because I sit here and like I look at our shelves while we're doing this, and I'm just like, oh, but that game is so good.
Yeah. So as you're going through this,
they don't fit in any category for right now.
But we could definitely come up with a whole host of categories that will showcase different segments of our library.
Yeah. And
really kind of share a lot of games with all of you that you may not even be aware of, right?
Yeah, I think that's the whole concept behind this. I mean, what we really want to try to do at this point is start to bring you some games that are not necessarily the hotness right now. Maybe they were the hotness before. Maybe they weren't quite hot, but they got kind of looked over, and now they're just left in the dust because other things have come and we're talking about other stuff now. But there are a lot of really good games out there that are ready. They are probably sitting at your local game store right now, that are totally worth your time.
That you walk by every time, and it's just it's sitting there reaching out for you as you walk by.
I'm good.
Take me home, play me.
Yeah, because I think in the end, those are the games that I have the most respect for as well.
Yeah,
are the ones that are like this year after year after year. Nothing has dethroned this yet.
Yeah.
And it just continues to be good. And I think we're at the point now in our hobby, I want to say our hobby career, but like our playing games and things like that we're able to say like, yeah, this is something we've been playing for years and years.
Yeah, we've been doing this a long time now.
Yeah.
So I think we know what we like, and we're confident in saying this is what we like.
Yeah, it's also why we're kind of hard on some games now.
We are hard on games. We're a lot harder than we used to be.
Yeah.
A lot tougher on games. Like when a new game comes out, we'll play it and I'll be like, this is not as good as I thought it was supposed to be. It missed on here, missed here, missed here. It could have been a really good opportunity. It's all right. You know, and I'm like, this is overblown, or to our surprise, like, wow, this is a lot better than I thought, and the hype was worth it. And it's nice to see that.
There's not as much hype as there should be.
Yeah, they're like, why isn't anybody talking about this game? This game is so good. And really, it's unfortunate because a lot of it comes down to just advertising and hype.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's just wrongly placed a lot of times, and it's whoever's got the money.
Well, and it's funny because like we've been talking about this a lot. We are kind of part of that engine.
We are
in the fact. I mean, we do
guilty.
a lot of Kickstarters. We help out a lot of publishers with a lot of stuff, and we'll continue to do that. I think there's definitely a place for a lot of these new games.
Yeah.
But not without giving some respect and showing some respect to the older titles that are just as good, if not better in a lot of cases. So
that's it. That's key.
So that's what we're doing.
All right. Well, thanks for.
I was going to say we'll put all these in the description.
Yeah. Well,
right?
I'm not going to put the names of the games in the description. I'm only going to put the mechanics in the description because I don't want because you can just go to the description and know exactly what our top 10 are, and that's kind of lame.
Yeah.
You gotta earn this. You gotta come through and you gotta watch it. So. And you'll be able to hit the timestamps if you want to skip around, and that's fine. But I'll put those in there. We'll also put a link to all of these game pages on the Board Game Nexus, so you can go check out the games themselves and see if there's something you want to add to your wish list, add to your collection. If you don't have an account set up, go set one up. Join our Facebook group, and coming soon, join our Discord server.
Yeah, we've got all the things.
All the things are coming.
They're coming.
We're getting ready. So we're getting ready to do this. So connect everybody socially. I think it's the right thing.
Yeah.
So.
Excellent.
Well, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you.